term for
Well, these are pictures again. We're looking at the personality of Eleanor.
Oh, I called you the other day. They were playing that Tennessee Williams thing again on TV.
Oh.
Just a closer walk with the...
Oh,
Tennessee
and I
board.
dashed to the phone like you.
Well, I don't know if
They must
get
be
it
doing
anyway. Yeah. But if we can catch it, we can tape it for him.
I don't think my tape is working.
well,
There's a great documentary about her, you know, that I watched.
About Eleanor Roosevelt?
Yeah, it was a 2-part documentary. I was thinking of this class last week.
we didn't meet last
Oh,
time.
you did?
I had coughed so bad I couldn't stop coughing, and so we called the class off.
I got a couple sentences.
Well,
We're trying to do more than just look at horoscopes. We're trying to appreciate character. And so what we're trying to do with every time we look at a horoscope, we're trying to study some quality or some special quality of character and draw it out of each of the sample horoscopes. So we're looking at the outward personality of Eleanor Roosevelt. She was one of the most affable and charming first ladies this country has ever had. Probably the most affable and charming. So what we're going to try and do is when we're looking at personality, we're going to look a little bit at affability and charm. Literally, affable means easy to talk with. It's a quality of pleasantness and of friendliness makes it easy to talk. So, we'll look at a couple of interesting little questions. Why is someone affable and or charming? And why was Eleanor affable and or charming? She has Sagittarius rising, and Sagittarius is probably the most affable sign in the whole zodiac. One reason for that is because it's one of the most generous signs. And it's easy to talk to somebody who's willing to give you something. One doesn't like to talk with somebody if they're trying to get something from you, or if they're trying to sell something, or if they're trying to prove something, or they're trying to make an issue, or something like that. Those are all things where it's hard to talk to somebody. She was willing to give. Like others, the Sagittarius rising, she was openly generous. She had no hidden agendas. She believed in helping others, and she was available to help others. Sagittarius is also one of the most positive signs in the zodiac. People like to talk about optimistic things, good things, pleasant things. It's always much easier to talk about pleasant things than it is about negative things. We don't like to talk about fears, doubts, hatred, or vanity, or any of those kinds of things. We do like to talk about progress, about things getting better. So she was very progressive, and for that reason, it was easy to speak with her. Now, Sagittarius, and especially Jupiter's ruler, is capable of depth. But usually, it does things with breadth rather than with depth. And it prefers to keep things simple. with someone, you keep things simple. Nobody likes to be involved in convoluted or highly complex conversations. It's tedious just working your way through all of those things. So just from these very few simple characteristics, we can see why it was so easy to speak with her. She could converse even with news people, which is quite a feat, because news people try to be objective, which means they're adversarial. People who are in power. She could put diplomats and people from other cultures at ease, and she could do it with starving people in Appalachia. She had a great facility of putting people at ease. Now these are traits that any one of us can use, irrespective of our astrological makeup. And that comes to us naturally, but we can apply it. We in our spiritual nature are above astrology, and so we should be able to freely use any astrological quality because the whole zodiac is within us. Some of these qualities are often misused. People who do cons are also positive. They keep things simple. Too simple. They leave out some important details that are very important to the matter. They also seem to be open, and they act like they're looking for your good. Like, I want to give you some money. I should be happy. We're on the phone all the time. There are also people who are mistakenly well-intended and who mean well and have some of these same traits. Because a person has these traits doesn't necessarily mean that they should be heeded. They may be so simple they have things wrong. So there has to be something more than just mere affability in the chart. But affability is a good place to begin. That's something, that greater character is something that may not show necessarily by astrology. Because we understand things astrologically doesn't mean that we shouldn't apply careful observation or intuitive focus when we're interacting with people. Eleanor had something more. She went beyond her training. Sagittarius is high-minded. And she was surely high-minded. If Sagittarius was only Sagittarius, it could be careless, it could be roguish, or it could be dissipant. But she didn't have any of those characteristics. Jupiter, which is the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Leo. This is a symbol or a representation of the quality of not only being high-minded, but honorable and loyal, and having really noble characteristics about her. People can really sense if you're honorable. People will trust you if you're really honorable. She was sometimes unwittingly used for political ends, but in herself, she was always honorable. I think that her husband was not above using her for his own ends. Jupiter in Leo also reinforces the tendencies to generosity. She was exceedingly generous, especially in giving herself and in putting forth a lot of effort. Many years before she was in political life, even before she was married, she was involved in numerous do-good organizations. And her participation was not financial. Her participation was heartfelt, it was sincere. She really believed in the causes. She came from a New York Dutch family. Her name before marriage was Roosevelt. In fact, Franklin was some kind of cousin of hers. And the Dutch were very generous in giving themselves, but not necessarily so with money. So in her generosity, she worked with the money of others, which is precisely what you'd expect having Jupiter in the 8th house. The 8th house is working with other people's finances. The 8th house is also the house of opportunities for regenerative activity. So it's not surprising that she was always involved with redemptive organizations. She wasn't so much involved with new initiative, but she was more involved with things of renewing what was wrong from the past. There's another side of the 8th house that is pertinent to the topic of affability. The 8th house is sometimes referred to as the house of secrets. That's sometimes true, but it's not always the case. Principle involved of the 8th house that is normally associated with secrecy can function in other ways. Sometimes things are secret because they're hidden out of view. The 2nd house, which is the opposite, is the house of possessions. Obvious outward possessions. Things that you see and use and need every day. The 8th house, by contrast, means the hidden or occult meaning of things. And it is sometimes manifest when the obvious things are absent. The 8th house is the house of absence. That's why it's associated with death. Sometimes we see people and we become familiar with them and we take them for granted. And when we take them for granted, we cease to become more familiar with them and discover more of them. And then they leave, or they die, or something like that. And in their absence, we know what they meant to us. We say, I never knew what so and so meant until they weren't there. And that's one of the ways that the 8th house works. For Eleanor, it worked in another way. One of the reasons that she was so affable and so easy to talk to was because she did not obtrude her personality onto others. She was open, she was positive, and she was engaging. But of herself, as much as possible, she tried a behind-the-scenes stance with other people. So in this regard, it was easier to talk to her in the same way that it's easier to talk to a priest in a confessional because the priest is hidden. Secrets flow much more easily. You don't have to stare somebody in the eye. and they're an invisible presence. So it was easy to talk to her that way. She wasn't pushing herself on others. Now this leads to another pertinent peculiarity about these horoscopes. Looking at the fact sheet, we see that Jupiter is a relatively weak planet. Only one planet, Saturn, is weaker than Jupiter. So we have to ask ourselves, does this mean that the personality is weak? Now it's impossible for the ascendant and the ruler of the ascendant to be out of the picture. Ruling the dense physical body, which is our main tool in life, they have to have some significance. They can be weak and still have a major role. We have to be careful about what we mean when we use words like weak personality. Because the words weak personality mean something very different in our language than the way we're using those words. When we use those words, we're using them in a very specialized technical language. That's why when we work with these things, we have to readjust what we know to the rest of the world. What we mean is that the personality is weak relative to the other facets of the total character: emotionality, mentality, and spiritual individuality. We do not mean that she's weak compared to all of the personalities in the world, or even one other personality in the world. This estimation system we're using is only for the personality in question. If you want to be fancy about it, you can say it's intra-horoscopic. It won't work inter-horoscopically. It won't work with another horoscope. I don't even know whether it's possible that you can have a system that you can compare one horoscope with another as far as relative strengths. I don't know that. It may be possible to do that by observation. Political pundits are doing that right now. They're trying to say who's more popular, more likely to be George Bush. It may be done by intuition. It may be possible to compare things and see which is stronger in which way. It's even possible to get some very general things, like you can do IQ tests or aptitude tests, and see whether someone is weak or strong relative to all people. That's not what you do with a horoscope.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say that there's no planets in the east? Isn't Mars in the east?
No. In the east, we mean the first house or halfway up into the 12th house.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Sorry about that. You can have contests, such as athletic contests or mental contests or things like that. Compare one individual with another, but even those are inconclusive. But there's no way that you can weigh one character or one major facet of a character against another without using observation or intuition. Usually there isn't any valid reason to do so anyway. Such comparisons are usually unpleasant and very counterproductive. So, for example, Eleanor's personality may be relatively weak compared to the other facets, especially the emotionality. That does not mean that it's weaker in your personality or mine. Mine probably, certainly She was probably stronger in personality than I am.
Well, you're differentiating between personality and character, I assume, because
Yes.
she seems to have a very strong character.
Yes. Now, relative strength does not mean relative quality. A character facet or some astrological component may be relatively weak, but it can still function with quality. Now, her physical personality may have been relatively weak. She had no major illnesses in life. And she was a very capable, busy person without getting totally exhausted, which is saying quite something for Sagittarius rising. So, we have, in our usage of the words, a relatively weak personality within the character. Relatively weak. So finally, after a lot of tedium, we're getting to the point we're trying to get to. Sometimes something that is mild or that is weak is more effective than something at full strength. A good example is chemistry. And in chemistry, acid that's had a certain ionic solution is more potent than if it's at 100% concentration. Now suppose Jupiter was very strong, as strong as the moon is now. The moon is double strong. With Jupiter in Leo with that kind of strength, it would be very expressive. It would be very entertaining. And it would certainly have a lot of gusto. But it might also seem overwhelming and bombastic. Being mild, the way it is now mild, or in this horoscope, it's much more conducive to conversation. Somebody is mildly pleasant. There's a sense of touch, you might say, but it's not too much. Strong aspects indicate strong personality traits. But strong traits are usually more determined, and they give us less leeway in their use. It's very hard to turn something that's really coming at you fast, like a charging bull. That's why bullfighters can be as successful as they are. The bull can't turn quickly enough to get them. So weaker aspects offer more tolerance, more room for change. But they do require more free will to put them in motion and to keep them in motion. So, we can see that a weak Jupiter is more likely to be affable than a strong one. A strong one is much more likely to be entertaining, maybe even educating, but not more affable. All right, now while we're looking at astrological peculiarities, let's look at one more. There is a notion that permeates astrology that there are bad aspects. And in that category, we almost always find the square and the opposition. Now, it's true because we are a fallen lot of people. We have a long history of tending to sin, so that it has become habitual and become an outlook on the life. It is true that these aspects frequently do indicate unregenerate attitudes and activities. And they also symbolize the retributive pain and suffering from such actions. It doesn't have to be that way. The principles behind the aspects can be used very positively. For example, you can't build or measure
Yeah, things that keep it from moving.
So we'll look at Jupiter square Pluto. It's not a very strong aspect, but it is the strongest aspect that is made by Jupiter. It's number 8 out of 14. If you look at the fact sheet, it's very close to the mean aspect strength of the whole horoscope. So we have a weak Jupiter, a medium strength square, and a strong Pluto. Where did you find Pluto as number 3 planet? Especially with all of the chopping that we do for planetary evolution. Let's look at some of the positive keywords that work for all 3 elements. Opinion, construction, and power. This aspect can mean an internal block. Things are frozen. A person has frozen ideas about things. Another name for a frozen idea is a prejudice. It doesn't look at the way things are. It looks at things as they are frozen in an attitude. Pluto, Jupiter, afflictions are famous. Prejudices, biases, bigotry, all of those kinds of things. Eleanor exhibited none of those qualities in any significant degree, so we have to look somewhere else. She was by no means a bigot at all. Let's try a little bit of analysis. Weak Jupiter, moderate square, strong Pluto. If Jupiter is stronger, which is not our case, the attitude of the aspect becomes very pompous. And the show, the appearances of the frozen attitude dominate over the negative feeling. If you're about the same strength, which is also not our case, it's a measured relationship that the means of expression for the prejudice is about as strong as the frozen attitude. In our case, we have Pluto as the stronger aspect, and that shows a good deal of deep inner darkness and of a negative, determinative kind of quality in the character. When Pluto is stronger, doesn't let a lot out, but what is let out is probably perverted and twisted.
So she's got to have counterbalance effect.
We're coming to that. So there's some insatiable dark urge. If the aspect is positive between Jupiter and Pluto, which it is to some extent with her, the native is always a force for the good. Jupiter and Pluto, she's building for the good. She may not always be successful, but she's a builder. If the aspect is negative, to some extent, that is true also. There is some kind of distorting bias. In this case, it's a square. There's some kind of deadlock, block, or bias. Hard to get around. This is a first phase aspect. The distance, the shortest distance from the slower moving planet to the faster moving planet is forward in the zodiac. So it is some kind of building aspect. It's like the first square in the lunation cycle is a building square.
So would you say that first phase thing one more time or repeat that?
Yes. And the shortest distance from the slowest moving planet to the fastest moving planet is forward in the zodiac. Is the first phase aspect. So this is the building life. Or since the 8th house is involved and since Pluto is involved, it's a rebuilding kind of aspect. In this aspect, Pluto is giving to Jupiter, Jupiter is receiving Pluto. So far we haven't really come to what this aspect means in our life. Since Jupiter rules the ascendant, one of the places we would look for it would be in early childhood. And when we look there, we do indeed find it. Sagittarius is a common sign. In this case, it's a weak common sign. Common sign personalities need and take well discipline, especially as children. If they don't get it, their life is terrible. I have known people with these characteristics that have later on in life themselves in very strict monastic societies because they felt they needed a strict internal discipline that their all too liberal parents never gave to them. They were given a free run kind of childhood. This was especially important for Eleanor. She could have been carelessly withdrawn about it. She could have become disciplined about it. It was extremely important because she loved her father. She loved her father very dearly. She just loved the black sheep family. Mm-hmm. Drunk, cowboy kind of guy, loved to party, and you can see why a child, especially Sagittarius rising, would love somebody like that. You know, it just, this was well-to-do New York society, so they basically kept him busy, let him party inside that, and let him get anywhere near it. Remember, I read the poems. When I get something down in there, it takes a long time to get down. The way it worked for her is that she had an exceedingly strict upbringing. She had brought to her what was deemed proper and right and decent. Prejudice that was given to her was not a racial prejudice, but it was something like a priggishness or snobbery. Tried to build her into the mold of a proper, good, upper class girl. The result was really interesting. she was pretty evolved already coming into this incarnation. She was already a very good human being. The discipline stuck, and the discipline served her very well. In her younger years, she was a little bit awkward because she was too stiff. In the written part, it even says in there, if you look at those photos again, if you see her as a young woman, she is like a tree. And that's because when they were bringing her up, they tied rods to her body. Not only did she carry things on her head, but she had a ramrod spine because she was tied that way. And so, the way it works, well, she became a very good human being, but she got the discipline she needed. So the square was not really living to her. They were training her to be a deb and to be a socialite. She did mildly rebel. A little rebellion came out against most of the prejudices. The only place that I can find in her life where the prejudices were there, and they were very small, she did look at unfortunates as being unfortunates. She wasn't condescending. She didn't take a superior attitude, but she looked at unfortunate people from an attitude that's not exactly just pure compassion.
Where in the chart does the discipline come from?
Little. I didn't get to for the last 15 minutes. She was built into a social mold of what a good girl was supposed to be. Mother and grandmother. Grandmother was very strong.
What did they do with the father?
They kept him away. He could be in social circles. Oh, life forces.
She must have seen him if she loved him.
Not a whole lot.
She loved it.
Yeah.
In upper class society, aristocratic circles, you didn't necessarily go to the
Yes.
So,
He didn't live at home. She lived with her mother and grandmother.
so you felt she needed all that discipline because it's Sag rising?
Yes.
Because
Common signs rising need discipline. And common sign rising people, as little children, will even ask for discipline. Oh, they need it. They're clever enough to test to make sure that it's real, but they really want it.
Common sign. What are
Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, Pisces. Let's get back to affability. It's very easy for a conversation to lose direction and to wander aimlessly. And it requires at least a modicum of discipline to hold it together and to build towards something, so that it isn't like party conversation that flows this way and that. And this is another way that the square works. She could have constructive, building conversations. All right. Well, we're looking at weak aspects. Let's look at the next strongest Jupiter aspect, which is weaker than this one. Yes.
I was going to ask or comment. When you began to say we see the answer in our childhood, I made the assumption that you were going back to the ascendant.
We are sort of through Jupiter being the ruler of the ascendant, yes.
Okay.
Moved to the childhood. But you even say that she was kept secret, her father, secret in her childhood, kept back behind things.
So you feel that like people that have like Jupiter rising are more likely to have alcoholic parents?
It can be that. I don't want to make any generalizations on that point.
I don't know, you just connected with these.
Yeah. There's a little bit more connecting than doing that two-track thing, but there's something different in the so with the Jupiter square Pluto, we saw a weak planet, a moderate aspect, a strong planet. In that case, the tool, the mode of activity was of average quality or usability. When that happens, the weak planet, there's more than adequate facility. For the strong planet, the tool is inadequate. You're weak for it. So the weak Jupiter would give it everything it had, use everything that it had. But the strong Pluto could not give it all. The square wasn't strong enough to bear it. Even be a conduit for it. Light wasn't the enough diameter. Nevertheless, all that could come through, or that could come into play for Pluto, was sufficient to dominate the Jupiterian part anyway. So if you want an image of that, it's like someone overpowering someone else with one hand tied behind his back. Pluto is the overpowerer, but it can't express all of it. One hand is tied behind his back, but it can still do it anyway, because it's that much stronger. In this case, we have a moderate planet, a weak aspect, same weak planet Jupiter. Jupiter's in the same kind of situation. Now all of the strength of Venus can work through the aspect, but what does is sufficient to dominate, but not so overwhelmingly. Either planetary strength or strength of activity. Venus is the planet of love. However, the love represented by Venus is not the same high, supernal, altruistic love of Uranus. She's active, but it's still love. It has all of the strength of sacrifice, and it's more human. Being human, sometimes Venus exhibits favoritism. Even expresses cowardice. At least it's doing things for itself. Venus is called the lesser beneficent. It's not so big-spirited as Jupiter. Venus is ideal in character for converting, neutralizing fields of lesser motive. The basic malefics, which are Mars and Saturn, reduce conflict, strife, tension, sometimes outright aggression and destruction. Use malice, hatred, and fear. Benefics, because Jupiter, ease all of these conditions. Promote peace, which is a very positive state, speaks of something more than just the absence of strife. It is the presence of something positive, creative, making things better. Both planets are benefic, which is how they heal. They heal by making things better, by creating positive conditions. Both of them are social lubricants. Venus and Jupiter are like the oil and grease of human affairs. Fats are ruled by Jupiter. Slick grease. This is an aspect then giving of ease, especially of relaxation. If Jupiter is stronger, which is not our case, the generosity and the giving predominate. If they're about even, love causes one to give, and giving causes one to love. It's kind of a mutual triggering, sort of like dance partners. If they're both of equal quality, they can move each other to move better. In our case, Venus is stronger, so it is a matter of relaxation into charm. Hey, we got the charm. 45 minutes, we got the charm. This is a conjunction. So the effect is instantaneous mutual co-excitation. It's impossible that one can be excited about the other. Charm and affability in both cases are inseparable. Charm is stronger. From all of this, we can see that relaxation is a big part of our affability. It's much easier to speak with someone if their manner relaxes us. It puts us at ease. There are no tensions. And again, here's another case of something milder being more effective. One can stand and enjoy and be benefited by strong, immense love. Love the bombastic character Jupiter, but in public circumstances or with strangers, gentle love is much more effective and relaxing than if somebody almost trying to pet you or something like that, having that kind of intensity of love. Charm is much more effective if it is applied lightly to begin with. You don't tame an animal with intense applications of love, especially if it's a wild animal. Later on, you may be able to have intense demonstrations of love, but at first you have to be very gentle, very subtle, and all your movements have to be slow. And she's wearing down again. Careful, it's going to come back again.
Well, if you need to stop.
No. We'll only have another 2 hours.
What about Venus being in Virgo, which is not a good place for it? I mean, how does that impact?
Increases its gentility. We're probably not going to go into that until we get to the emotionality. Now, it's important. It's very important in that this aspect is a direct link between the outermost person, the ascendant, and the innermost being, the sun. The sun is the deposited and disposed by Venus. So when there is a conjunction between the depositor and dispositor of the sun, with the will of the ascendant, there's a direct connection between the inner person and the outer person. That's not always the case. Very often, you don't find that kind of a smooth transition from within out. This shows not only a charming and affable character, somebody that's very integrated. And there is integration between the charm, which is inner, and the affability, which is outer. And both qualities are gentle. There are other more forceful things in a character, but the inmost and the outmost are characterized by being gentle. Now it would be nice at this point to do a study of Venus or Pluto and then synthesize the whole Venus, Jupiter, Pluto aspect pattern. And we'll try to do that at some point. Right now we don't have the time. It would also even be appropriate at this time, but it still takes us too far away from the personality. We have to stray a little bit. We have to keep in mind what we're trying to get at.
Getting all these pieces about.
So let's just take a little glance at Pluto Venus. The idea of charm is a very peculiar idea. We say that when somebody has a charmed life, that they are blessed and protected in an almost magical way. And in that sense, we have amulets and good luck charms. When we say that someone is charming, we mean that someone can move us emotionally and does so in a kind of enchanting way. There's something of an art about being charming, and it is an art that you can learn. In fact, there are indeed charm schools, and she was sent to charm schools. In Greek mythology, Aphrodite had a girdle, which, when she wore it, would charm anyone who saw her. They fell in love with her, whoever was wearing it, to the degree that they were blinded. She lent it to other people, it had the same effect. Now, there's something perplexing about all of this, at least it's perplexing to me. It's true that if you're in love, you do feel sort of stunned, and you don't act normal, and you don't act rationally. We even say that when somebody is naturally beautiful, or decoratively beautiful, we say they're stunning. It's also true that when we behold great beauty, whether it's in art or in nature, it's a similar effect. We're enchanted. We're stunned. But to say that it is enchanting or compelling may not be the right way to understand that condition. Words like enchantment are words of magic. And Venus is not a planet of magic. What seems to happen is that when we are charmed, we're seeing through or seeing beyond all of the material, the ephemeral trivia, all of the separate and disparate things in the world. We see through, and we see into a love that is of universal harmony. It's some kind of supernal simplicity that's holding everything together. Yes, it's all just as simple as that, you say to yourself. We can even see this kind of thing work in a great composition, artistic composition. A symphony or a very complicated painting is held together in a kind of unity. It's because the unity is what is in the consciousness of the artist and not in all the disparate parts. There can indeed be a stunning capacity that is specialized. And in this case, the Venus square Pluto may be something more than just a love obsession. She may herself be fascinated and stunned and enchanted by the power of love. She did have that quality that she didn't assume anything. And because she didn't assume anything, the power of love fixated her. She's fixated almost like a slave in the sixth house. She's a slave to love, and that may be what draws other people into her vision. Pluto has that hypnotic kind of quality on it. Fortunately, it's not so strong as to indicate something perverted. And fortunately, she has all of her gentle and mild ways about getting that way. Nonetheless, she does have the capacity to build, to express power of love, which is what's involved with little Venus, and that is his charm. The position of Venus in the ninth house indicates that love is serving a higher, benign purpose. Purpose as opposed to objective, which is a key word for the 10th house. Purpose is a ninth house key word. And that certainly puts things in the direction that she went. Venus rules Libra, and so she disposes and deposits the sun. She was prepared. She was trained to the end of expressing charm. That was one of her goals in life. She was supposed to be a social figure. They thought they were raising a debutante. She had finishing school. She had education in all the gentle arts and humanities. She had exposure to cultures, all to learn the ways of charm as a learnable subject. Her mother and grandmother may have intended for her to be a socialite and to form a good marriage. She did, but she took to it so well and took the love and appreciation beyond all of her expectation. With the sun in Libra in her inmost being, she saw herself as a being of love. So whether she's a product of a gentle education or whether she's a love obsessive, she did love. She did it well. But all of the love in the world is useless if it isn't expressed. And that's where the mild, important Venus conjunct Jupiter comes in. Through it, she relaxes, and when she's relaxed, the love can flow, and it's unimpeded by the personality. In fact, it almost gets expanded. It's almost like when you see water coming out of a hose. When there's nothing holding it on the sides anymore, it can expand and flow out like that. It's an image that I get with the Venus conjoined to the ruler of the ascendant.
because Venus
That's
is
the longest
sentence in the world.
Probably would have been 15 minutes shorter without coffee.
Yeah.
is Venus generally the sign of the charm?
Yes.
Are there like other aspects that
Yes.
make that? What aspects would indicate
Venus
charm?
and Neptune are even more charming
Venus and
because
Neptune.
they have the magical quality on them and bring out an element of fantasy. True and false fantasy. False being glamour.
I think,
I suppose Venus and Uranus would be charming too, wouldn't it?
Yes. That gets pretty romantic. It's somewhat exotic in its nature. That is charming also. I'm sorry, I just don't have the gusto.
You have to apologize.
No, that's all right.
I think I'll come up.
It was good. It
Yeah,
was
that's-
charming.
I feel better. Like, you know, I put something behind.
I don't understand why you don't drink more water.
That's the nap. Right here is where it
I understand.
Yeah, water doesn't hit that.
I understand where it doesn't hit it, but when